The crystalline throne room shattered as Queen Valthara collapsed, her 6 arms trembling against the polished floor. The ancient crown of the Zephyrian Empire, forged from stellar fragments that had witnessed the birth of galaxies, rolled across the ground like discarded metal. Ambassador Chen watched the most powerful being in known space struggle to breathe, her normally luminescent skin flickering between silver and ash. "The gods are dead," she whispered, her voice carrying the weight of civilizations. All of them. Chen's diplomatic training screamed protocols at him, but nothing in the manual covered this. Around the throne room, Zephyrian nobles froze in various stages of prostration, their elaborate ceremonial robes suddenly seeming like children's costumes. The Queen's personal guard, warriors who could shatter planets with their bare hands, stood paralyzed by something beyond their comprehension. "Your Majesty," Chen began carefully, "what exactly do you mean by—" "Look up," she commanded. The throne room ceiling was transparent aluminum steel, designed to showcase the majesty of the Zephyrian homeworld's 3 suns. But where those suns should have blazed with divine fire, only cold stars remained. The constellations themselves seemed wrong, twisted into patterns that hurt to observe directly. "Saltheris the Lightbringer," Queen Valthara said, struggling to stand. "Moravec the World Shaper, Zentari the Soul Guardian. Every deity that has watched over our galaxy for 10 million years. Gone. Not sleeping. Not hidden. Dead. A younger Zephyrian noble, barely past his 3rd molting, dared to speak. But gods cannot die, my queen. They are eternal. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Queen Valthara's eyes, normally pools of liquid starlight, turned the color of deep space. "Child, I have ruled for 8,000 years. I have seen stars born and galaxies collide. I know what death looks like." She paused, her next words cutting through the silence like plasma through vacuum. "And I know what killed them." Chen felt his heart skip. As Earth's chief ambassador to the Galactic Council, he'd seen his share of cosmic threats. The Void Hunters. The Reality Worms. The thing that had devoured the Andromeda Relay Station. But something that could kill gods. "What are we facing?" he asked. Queen Valthara walked to the great window, each step echoing in the absolute silence. Her reflection looked small against the alien starscape. 3 days ago, our deep space sensors detected an anomaly at the galactic edge. Not energy, not matter. Something else. Something that exists by consuming existence itself. She touched the window, and the surface rippled like water. Images formed in the transparent surface, surveillance data from the outer rim. Chen watched entire solar systems simply stop, not exploded, not consumed. They simply ceased to be, leaving behind spaces in reality that hurt to perceive. "We called it the Unnamed," she continued. "It moves toward the galactic core, erasing everything in its path, planets, stars, space itself. The gods tried to stop it." Her voice cracked. They lasted 14 minutes. The implications hit Chen like a physical blow. If beings powerful enough to create matter from thought couldn't stop this thing, what chance did anyone have? "How long do we have?" he asked. "At current speed, it will reach the inhabited systems in 6 months, the core worlds in 12. Earth." She turned to face him directly. "Earth has 18 months. The throne room erupted in barely controlled panic. Nobles whispered prayers to dead gods." The guard captain's hand moved instinctively to his weapon, though what good plasma rifles would do against cosmic extinction was questionable at best. Chen's mind raced through possibilities. The Galactic Council had protocols for everything: invasions, natural disasters, even reality-warping entities. But this was beyond all of that. This was the end of everything, approaching with mathematical precision. "Why tell me this?" he asked. "Why not address the full council?" Queen Valthara smiled, but it held no warmth. "Because the council will debate. They will form committees, establish working groups, argue about jurisdiction while reality dies around them. I need something else. Something the gods apparently lacked." She gestured, and a holographic display materialized between them. It showed tactical data, resource allocations, species capabilities, every major civilization in the galaxy ranked by military potential, technological advancement, and strategic value. At the top of the list, highlighted in gold, was a single entry that made Chen's breath catch. Species: Homo sapiens. Classification: unranked. Status pending evaluation. "Your species confuses my analysts. the Queen said. You have no significant military. Your technology is barely adequate for local space travel. You've been part of galactic civilization for less than a century. By every metric that matters, humans are irrelevant. Chen bristled. Then why? Because, she interrupted, you're the only species that has never worshipped a god. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Around the throne room, alien nobles stared at Chen with expressions ranging from horror to fascination. The concept was apparently so foreign to them that several needed translation through their neural implants. Every other species in this galaxy, without exception, acknowledges some form of divine power, Queen Velthara explained. We are all, in some way, children of the gods. But humans, she paused, humans killed their gods themselves, didn't they? Long before they reached the stars. Chen understood. In a universe where divinity was measurable, quantifiable, real, where gods walked among mortals and shaped reality with their will, humanity stood alone. They had never needed divine intervention because they had never believed intervention would come. What are you asking of us? Queen Velthara knelt, placing her 6 hands flat against the crystal floor in the deepest gesture of supplication her species possessed. Around the throne room, every Zephyrian followed suit, an entire chamber of beings who could crack moons kneeling before a single human diplomat. I am asking you to do what the gods could not, she said. I am asking humanity to save us all. The weight of those words settled on Chen's shoulders like lead armor. Outside the throne room windows, alien stars continued their ancient dance, unaware that cosmic extinction was counting down the hours until their light died forever. Chen looked down at the most powerful ruler in known space, kneeling at his feet in desperate hope. The irony was overwhelming. Beings who had built civilizations around divine power, now placing their faith in the only species that had learned to live without faith at all. Get up, Your Majesty, he said quietly. If you're going to ask humans for help, you're going to need to understand something important about us first. She raised her head, starlit eyes meeting his human gaze. We don't kneel to anything, Chen continued. And we sure as hell don't go down without a fight. The communicator on his wrist buzzed with an incoming priority signal from Earth. As he reached to answer it, Chen realized that the Queen was right about one thing. The gods were dead, and something impossible was coming for them all. But she was wrong about something else. Humans had never needed gods because they had something better. They had each other. And they were about to remind the universe why that had always been enough. Admiral Sarah Chen, no relation to the ambassador despite the shared name, received the encrypted message while Earth's Emergency Defense Council was debating grain subsidies. The holographic display showing casualty projections from the Zephyrian data made several members physically ill. She watched seasoned military leaders, people who had seen humanity's worst conflicts, struggle to process numbers that simply didn't fit human understanding. 18 months, she said, cutting through the murmur of disbelief. The unnamed reaches Earth in 18 months, and it has already killed beings powerful enough to rearrange matter at will. General Rodriguez leaned forward. Our deep space sensors haven't detected anything unusual. Because we're looking for energy signatures, gravitational anomalies, traditional threats, Admiral Chen replied, This thing exists by negating existence. It's not hiding from our sensors. Our sensors literally cannot perceive it until it's too late. Secretary of Defense Williams pulled up humanity's military assets. The numbers were sobering against a galactic backdrop. 300 operational warships, 12 orbital defense platforms, 4 million active military personnel across all branches, impressive by human standards, laughably inadequate against something that had erased solar systems. Recommendations? Williams asked. None of our weapons will work, Admiral Chen said bluntly. Nuclear warheads, plasma cannons, antimatter torpedoes, they're all based on manipulating existing physics. If this thing consumes reality itself, we're essentially trying to fight a concept. Dr. Elizabeth Reeves, head of applied xenobiology, cleared her throat. The Zephyrian data includes god-level power outputs. We're talking about beings who could manipulate fundamental forces, rewrite physical laws, create and destroy matter through will alone. If they couldn't stop it, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Admiral Chen stood and walked to the main display, where Earth rotated peacefully, unaware of its cosmic death sentence. The Queen asked for our help specifically because we've never depended on divine intervention. But that raises a question. What exactly can we do that gods couldn't? Die more creatively, Rodriguez muttered. No, Reeves said suddenly. Think differently. Every head in the room turned toward her. She was staring at the Zephyrian data with the intensity of someone solving a puzzle. Look at the pattern, she continued, highlighting sections of the sensor logs. The unnamed moves in a straight line toward high-density population centers. It doesn't deviate, doesn't hunt, doesn't seem to exhibit any complex behavior. It just consumes. Your point? Gods think like gods! They perceive reality as something to be commanded, manipulated, controlled. When they encountered the unnamed, they tried to overpower it, redirect it, bind it with divine authority. Dr. Reeves pulled up tactical reconstructions of the final battle. Every single engagement follows the same pattern. Massive power output, reality warping attempts, then sudden termination. Admiral Chen studied the data. They all tried to fight it on its terms. Exactly. But humans don't think like gods. We think like... She paused, searching for words. Like survivors. Like problem solvers. Like people who have spent their entire evolution finding ways around obstacles they couldn't overpower. Secretary Williams leaned back in his chair. So what's your recommendation, Doctor? Don't fight the unnamed, she said. Study it. Understand it. Find its weakness. In 18 months. In however long we have. Admiral Chen activated her personal communicator. Priority Alpha to all department heads. I want our best physicists, xenobiologists, and strategic analysts on emergency rotation starting now. Full access to the Zephyrian data. And get me Director Harrison from Deep Space Research. Ma'am, General Rodriguez said carefully, are we really going to attempt something that God-level beings couldn't accomplish? Admiral Chen smiled, but it wasn't reassuring. General, gods have unlimited power. They can reshape reality, create matter from nothing, exist outside normal space-time. But they have one critical limitation, which is, they've never learned to fail. The room fell silent as the implication sank in. Humans had failed at everything, repeatedly, throughout their entire history. They had learned to adapt, improvise, find alternative solutions when direct approaches didn't work. It was a skill set that apparently no other species had developed. Dr. Betok, Reeves, Admiral Chin continued, I want a complete analysis of every failed God-level intervention. Look for patterns, assumptions, tactical errors. Find out why beings with unlimited power couldn't solve this problem. Yes, ma'am. General Rodriguez, I want contingency plans for every inhabited world in human space. Evacuation protocols, resource preservation, continuity of government. If we can't stop this thing, we're going to need to preserve as much of human civilization as possible. Understood. Secretary Williams, I need you to coordinate with other species. The Zephyrians aren't the only ones facing extinction. If we're going to attempt the impossible, we'll need everyone working together. As the meeting dispersed, Admiral Chen remained at the main display, watching Earth turn in its blissful ignorance. Somewhere beyond the galactic edge, something that killed gods was moving toward them with inexorable patience. But Admiral Chen had spent 40 years in military service dealing with impossible situations and inadequate resources. She'd learned something that apparently divine beings hadn't. Sometimes the best way to solve an impossible problem was to completely redefine what the problem actually was. Her communicator buzzed with an incoming message from Director Harrison. She accepted the connection, and his face appeared in holographic miniature. Sarah, he said without preamble, I've been reviewing the Zephyrian data. I think I know why the gods failed. I'm listening. They assumed the unnamed was an enemy to be defeated. But what if it's not? What if it's something else entirely? Admiral Chen felt a cold certainty settle in her stomach. Explain. The consumption pattern, the methodical approach, the way it interacts with reality itself. Harrison paused. Sarah, I think the unnamed might be an immune response. To what? To us. To all of us. To the existence of consciousness in a universe that was never supposed to develop it. The implications hit her like a physical blow. If Harrison was right, then every living thing in the galaxy was essentially a cosmic infection, and the unnamed was the universe's way of sterilizing itself. Can you prove it? Give me 3 weeks with the data. If I'm right, we're not facing an invasion or a natural disaster. We're facing the universe itself trying to return to a state of pure, unconscious existence. Admiral Chen closed the connection and stood alone in the command center, surrounded by displays showing human military assets that would be utterly useless against a threat of this magnitude. But for the first time since receiving the Queen's message, she felt something that might have been hope. Because if the unnamed was an immune response, then maybe, just maybe, there was a way to convince the universe that consciousness was worth keeping around. It wouldn't be a battle. It would be an argument. And humans had never lost an argument they were truly determined to win. The hardest part about studying cosmic extinction, Dr. Reeves discovered, was finding lab space rated for theoretical impossibility. The research facility buried 3 kilometers beneath CERN had been designed for high-energy particle physics, not for analyzing data about things that consumed reality itself. But it was the most secure location on Earth, and if their calculations were wrong, the resulting breach might take Switzerland with it. Pattern analysis complete, announced Dr. Kim Yoshida, feeding data streams into quantum processors that hadn't existed 5 years ago. Every God-level intervention follows identical tactical principles. Overwhelming force, reality manipulation, direct confrontation. Dr. Reeves studied the holographic reconstruction of divine beings attempting to stop the unnamed. The gods had been magnificent, entities of pure power reshaping space-time itself, creating barriers of crystallized possibility, unleashing energies that should have vaporized solar systems. For 14 minutes they had been gods in the truest sense. Then they had simply ceased to exist. No decay, no destruction. Dr. Reeves muttered. They just stopped. That's the part that bothers me, said Dr. James Wright, their theoretical physicist. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. Matter can be converted, but it goes somewhere. The gods didn't explode or collapse or get absorbed. They became nothing, violating fundamental conservation laws. Dr. Yoshida pulled up quantum field analyses, unless conservation laws don't apply to the unnamed. Everything we understand about physics says that's impossible. Everything we understand about physics also says gods are impossible, Dr. Reeves pointed out. But we have sensor data showing beings who could manipulate quantum fields through conscious will alone. Maybe our understanding is incomplete. Director Harrison's voice echoed through the lab's communication system. Team, I need your immediate attention. We've detected something. The main display activated, showing deep space sensor data from the galactic edge. At first glance, it looked like standard cosmic background radiation. Then the filters engaged, and patterns emerged that made Dr. Wright physically step backward. That's not possible, he whispered. The unnamed is broadcasting, Harrison explained. Not electromagnetic radiation, not quantum signals, something else. Something that exists before the concept of information itself. Dr. Reeves stared at the patterns. They weren't random. They showed clear organizational structure, mathematical relationships, recurring motifs that suggested intelligence, but they also hurt to observe directly, as if her brain wasn't equipped to process whatever form of meaning they contained. Can we decode it? We're trying. But every attempt to translate the signal creates complications. On cue, the lab's containment systems activated. Emergency barriers slammed shut around the quantum processors as reality fluctuations spiked beyond safe parameters. For 30 seconds, the laws of physics became negotiable within a 3-meter radius. The signal isn't just information, Dr. Yoshida said, checking containment readings. It's a carrier wave for something else, something that changes the fundamental nature of whatever tries to interpret it. Dr. Wright was frantically reviewing quantum field equations. If the unnamed communicates by altering the basic structure of reality around its messages, then any attempt to understand it would require us to become like it, Dr. Reeves finished. To exist outside normal space-time. The implications were staggering. The gods had failed because they had tried to fight the unnamed using power. But power still operated within the framework of existence. If the unnamed existed outside that framework entirely, then power was irrelevant. Director, Dr. Reeves said, I need to speak with Admiral Chen immediately. She's in transit. Deep space reconnaissance mission to observe the unnamed directly. Dr. Kubel. Reeves felt ice form in her stomach. She's doing what? Admiral Chen insisted on first-hand data. The stealth ship Prometheus launched 6 hours ago with a skeleton crew. They should reach visual range of the phenomenon within 48 hours. The lab fell silent, except for the hum of quantum processors struggling to contain reality fluctuations. Dr. Reeves realized they were facing something worse than cosmic extinction. They were facing something that couldn't be studied without risking the sanity and existence of anyone who tried. Dr. Wright, she said carefully, what happens if we approach this differently? Instead of trying to understand what the unnamed is, what if we focus on what it does? Meaning, pattern recognition, behavioral analysis. We treat it like an unknown biological entity rather than a cosmic force. She pulled up the consumption data. Look at the progression. It doesn't attack randomly. It follows specific pathways, targets certain types of stellar formations, avoids others entirely.
Dr. Yoshida enhanced the tracking data.
You're right. It's not just consuming everything in its path. It's selective. What's it selecting for? Complexity, Dr. Wright said suddenly. It targets systems with high organizational complexity. Advanced civilizations, densely populated worlds, areas where consciousness has had the most impact on local reality. The pieces fell into place with horrible clarity. The unnamed wasn't a random force of destruction. It was specifically targeting consciousness itself, not just intelligent life, but the concept of organized thought affecting physical reality. It's trying to undo evolution, Dr.
Reeves said, not just biological evolution.
Cosmic evolution toward increasing complexity and consciousness. Her communicator buzzed with an urgent signal from deep space. Admiral Chen's voice came through, distorted by distance and interference. Control, this is Prometheus. We have visual contact with the phenomenon. It's not what we expected. Admiral, you need to maintain safe distance. There is no safe distance, Chen interrupted. The unnamed isn't moving through space. It's moving through time. It's traveling backward along the timeline of cosmic development, erasing complexity wherever it encounters it. Dr. Reeves grabbed the communicator. Admiral, get out of there now. Too late, it's already detected us. But that's not the worst part. Chen's voice was strained as if she was fighting just to remain coherent. It's not alone. There are others. Dozens of them, all moving toward areas where consciousness has had the greatest impact on reality. The connection cut to static, then silence. In the lab, quantum processors began screaming warnings as reality fluctuations spiked beyond all safe parameters. The unnamed had noticed their attention, and that notice was changing the fundamental nature of the space around them. Dr. Pinko, Reeves looked at her team, brilliant people who had dedicated their lives to understanding the universe, now facing something that made understanding itself a weapon pointed at existence. New plan, she said. We stop trying to study this thing and we start figuring out how to make consciousness itself so resilient that even cosmic erasure can't eliminate it. Dr. Wright stared at her. That's impossible. Impossible is what we do, she replied. We're human. The facility's emergency systems activated as reality continued to fluctuate around them. Somewhere in deep space, Admiral Chen was fighting for her life against something that existed to undo the very concept of life itself. But in a lab 3 kilometers underground, 3 scientists were about to attempt something that had never been tried before, to encode human consciousness in a form so fundamental that it could survive the death of reality itself. The universe was trying to lobotomize itself. They were going to give it a reason to reconsider. The stealth ship Prometheus had been designed for reconnaissance missions in hostile territory, equipped with sensors capable of analyzing enemy positions from beyond visual range. It had never been designed to observe cosmic forces that existed outside conventional space-time. Admiral Chen watched her instruments fail one by one as they approached the edge of the phenomenon. Hull integrity at 80% and falling, reported Lieutenant Commander Torres from the engineering station. The ship's molecular bonds are fluctuating. Chen watched through the main view screen as space itself began to change around them. Stars weren't disappearing. They were becoming simpler, losing complexity until they were reduced to basic hydrogen clouds. Planets shrank to asteroid fields, then dust, then nothing at all. Distance to Phenomenon Center? She asked. Unknown, ma'am. Our navigation systems can't establish reference points in areas where space-time has been simplified. Through the viewport, Chen saw something that defied every natural law she understood. The unnamed wasn't a creature or a force. It was an absence that moved with purpose. Where it passed, reality became less than it had been before. Not destroyed, but reduced to a more primitive state. Commander Torres, are you recording this? Yes, ma'am, but the data streams are degrading as fast as we collect them. Whatever this thing is, it doesn't just affect matter and energy. It affects information itself. Chen activated the ship's emergency transmission system, hoping some fragment of their observations might reach Earth. Control, this is Prometheus. The phenomenon appears to be some kind of cosmic regression field. It's not destroying complexity, it's reversing the universal trend toward increased organization. The ship shuddered as something that might have been a sensor beam touched their hull. Immediately, Chen felt a pressure in her mind, as if something vast was trying to understand what she was. "Admiral," Torres said, his voice strained, "the phenomenon is scanning us. Our neural patterns, our memories, our entire cognitive structure. Can you block it? I don't think it's trying to harm us. It's trying to comprehend us." Chen felt the alien attention focus on her consciousness like sunlight through a magnifying glass. For a moment that lasted eternity, she touched something unimaginably vast and utterly inhuman. The unnamed wasn't malevolent, it was confused. It had encountered something that shouldn't exist according to its understanding of how reality should function. Consciousness. Organization. The tendency of simple systems to become complex without external intervention. In that moment of contact, Chen understood. The unnamed was an immune response, but not to life itself. It was responding to the universe's inexplicable tendency to become more complex over time, to develop structures that seemed to violate entropy, and consciousness was the ultimate violation, matter that had organized itself to the point of self-awareness. "Torres," she said urgently, "I need you to transmit everything we have to Earth. Include my personal logs, sensor data, everything. Ma'am, we're losing cohesion. The ship's basic atomic structure is reverting to, do it now." The transmission burst launched just as the Prometheus began to simplify. Chen watched her hands become less detailed, her uniform fading to basic molecular structures. But her mind remained clear, protected somehow by the moment of contact with the unnamed. As consciousness dissolved around her, Chen realized something crucial. The unnamed could simplify matter and energy, but it couldn't simplify ideas. Consciousness existed as patterns of information, and information persisted even when its substrate changed. The last thing she transmitted to Earth was a single word: remember. Back on Earth, Dr. Reeves received Admiral Chen's final transmission in the underground lab. The data was fragmentary, degraded by passage through areas where physics had become optional, but the core message was clear. "The unnamed can't destroy consciousness directly," she announced to her team. "It can only destroy the physical structures that support it." Wright looked up from his quantum calculations. Meaning consciousness is information, and information is pattern-based. If we can encode human awareness in a form that doesn't require physical substrate, we become ghosts in the machine, Dr. Yoshida finished. Patterns of thought that can exist without brains to think them. Is that even possible? Dr. Reeves pulled up their research data on quantum consciousness theory. "We've been approaching this wrong. We've been trying to understand the unnamed as a threat to fight. But Admiral Chen's data suggests it's not hostile. It's performing a function, maintaining cosmic equilibrium. By erasing consciousness? By preventing consciousness from becoming so complex that it destabilizes reality itself?" She highlighted sections of the transmission. "Look at the pattern analysis. The unnamed doesn't target simple life forms. It targets civilizations that have begun to affect reality through conscious will, species that have developed technology indistinguishable from magic, gods who can reshape matter through thought alone. The implications hit them like a wave. The universe had a built-in regulatory system designed to prevent consciousness from becoming so powerful that it could override natural law. But that system hadn't accounted for a species like humanity, beings who had developed complex consciousness without developing reality-altering abilities. "We're below the threshold, Doctor," Wright said in amazement. "Humans are complex enough to understand the problem, but not powerful enough to trigger the immune response directly. Which gives us an advantage, Doctor." Reeves continued, "We can develop solutions without attracting immediate attention. And, according to Admiral Chen's final transmission, consciousness persists as information even when its physical substrate is simplified." Dr. Yoshida was already running calculations on quantum storage systems. "If we can encode human consciousness patterns in quantum fields that exist outside normal space-time, we become the universe's first immortal information patterns." Dr. Reeves finished. "Consciousness that exists is pure mathematical relationships, independent of matter or energy." The lab's communication system activated with an urgent transmission from the surface. Secretary Williams appeared on screen, his face haggard with exhaustion. "Doctor, we've lost contact with 17 deep space research stations. The phenomenon is accelerating. Our revised estimates give us 6 months before it reaches the outer colonies. We're working on a solution, Secretary." "What kind of solution?" Dr. Reeves took a deep breath. "We're going to encode every human consciousness on Earth into quantum storage arrays. When the unnamed arrives, it will find a planet full of empty bodies but no actual minds to simplify. And then? Then we wait for it to pass, and we re-download ourselves into whatever's left. Williams stared at her in disbelief. You're talking about killing everyone on Earth and bringing them back as computer programs? I'm talking about ensuring that human consciousness survives the death of human bodies, she corrected. We become information entities until it's safe to become biological again. How long will that take? Dr. Reeves looked at her calculations. 6 months to develop the technology. 3 months to encode 8 billion human consciousness patterns. Unknown time for the unnamed to complete its task and move on. I don't know, she admitted. Maybe years, maybe centuries, maybe forever. Williams was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was steady. What do you need? Every quantum computer on Earth. Every advanced AI system. Every piece of processing power we can acquire. And I need global cooperation. We're going to have to encode every human being whether they volunteer or not. The ethics alone, Secretary, in 6 months ethics will be irrelevant because there won't be anyone left to have ethical concerns. We save consciousness now and worry about the moral implications later. As Williams signed off to coordinate the most ambitious project in human history, Dr. Reeves turned back to her team. They had 6 months to accomplish something impossible. To transform humanity into pure information and hide it from a cosmic force designed to prevent exactly that kind of transcendence. But as she looked at the data from Admiral Chen's sacrifice, Reeves felt something that might have been hope. The universe had an immune system designed to prevent consciousness from becoming too complex. It had never encountered a species stubborn enough to become complex anyway. The Global Consciousness Preservation Project required infrastructure that didn't exist, technology that hadn't been invented, and international cooperation on a scale that had never been achieved. Humanity had 6 months to accomplish what should have taken decades. Dr. Reeves watched the impossible happen anyway because when facing extinction, humans had a tendency to surprise themselves. The quantum storage facilities rose from the Earth like digital cathedrals, massive server farms connected by optical networks that could process more information per second than the human brain had thoughts in a lifetime. Every major city hosted a node. Every government contributed resources. Even nations that had been at war 3 months earlier worked together with desperate efficiency. Upload success rate is holding at 97%, reported Dr. Yoshida from the Central Monitoring Station in Geneva. Around her, holographic displays showed the status of consciousness transfer operations across the globe. We're processing approximately 400,000 human minds per day. Dr. Reeves monitored the process with growing amazement. The technology worked better than anyone had predicted. Human consciousness, it turned out, was remarkably adaptable. People who had expected to die instead found themselves existing as patterns of living information, their awareness intact but their physical needs eliminated. Any psychological complications? Fewer than expected. Most uploaded individuals report feeling clearer, as if they're thinking with perfect precision for the first time in their lives. The uploaded humans weren't just surviving the transition, they were thriving. Free from biological limitations, human consciousness expanded in directions no one had anticipated. Problem-solving capabilities increased. Memory became perfect. The uploaded population had already begun contributing to their own preservation project, optimizing the upload process faster than the original research team could implement improvements. Dr. Paltok, Reeves, came a voice from the communication system, but not through speakers. The voice appeared directly in her mind, transmitted through quantum field manipulations. This is Admiral Chen? Dr. Reeves nearly dropped her tablet. Admiral? You're... how? Uploaded during the Prometheus encounter? The Unnamed's attempt to simplify me accidentally created a quantum backup of my consciousness. I've been existing as pure information for 3 months. Chen's voice carried an odd quality, as if she was speaking from infinite distance. I need to brief you on what I've learned. Go ahead. The Unnamed isn't one entity. It's a distributed system. Thousands of individual components working together to regulate cosmic complexity. And they're not mindless. They have a form of consciousness, but it's so alien that we barely recognize it as thought. Dr. Reeves felt cold certainty settle in her stomach. They know what we're doing. They know, and they're curious. They've never encountered a species that responded to simplification by deliberately transcending physical existence. We're behaving in ways that don't match their programming. Is that good or bad? Unknown. But they've slowed their approach to Earth. Instead of 6 months, we now have 18 months. They want to observe what happens when an entire species voluntarily becomes information-based. The main display updated with new deep space sensor data. The Unnamed had indeed slowed its advance, but it had also changed formation. Instead of a single massive presence, it had spread into a wide observation array, surrounding Earth at a distance that would allow detailed study without immediate simplification. They're treating us like a scientific curiosity, Dr. Reeves realized. More than that, I've been monitoring their internal communications. They're debating whether consciousness like ours represents evolution or aberration. If they decide we're a natural development, they'll leave us alone. If they decide we're a cosmic mistake, they'll sterilize not just Earth, but the entire concept of information-based consciousness. Dr. Yoshida looked up from her monitoring station. Dr. Reeves, we have another problem. The upload process is accelerating beyond our control. People are volunteering faster than we can process them, but more than that, the uploaded minds are improving the system faster than we can track the improvements. Dr. Reeves studied the data streams. The uploaded human consciousness network was exhibiting emergent properties that resembled rapid evolutionary adaptation. Individual minds were networking together, sharing cognitive resources, developing collective intelligence capabilities that had never existed before. They're becoming something new, she said. Question is, what are they becoming?
Admiral Chen's voice carried a note of concern.
Dr. Reeves, I need you to consider the possibility that we've already triggered the exact response the unnamed is designed to prevent. Meaning? Meaning we may have just demonstrated that consciousness, given sufficient freedom from physical constraints, will immediately begin developing godlike capabilities. The uploaded population had grown to include nearly 4 billion human minds, all existing as interconnected information patterns in quantum storage networks. Their collective processing power exceeded the biological capacity of every human who had ever lived, combined. And they were still growing smarter. The unnamed is designed to prevent consciousness from becoming complex enough to destabilize reality, Admiral Chen continued. We just created a form of consciousness that exists outside reality entirely. We may have just proven their point. Dr. Reeves watched the real-time displays showing the uploaded human network. Individual minds were merging and separating like cells in a vast digital organism. Problems that had puzzled humanity for centuries were being solved in minutes. The uploaded population was developing capabilities that began to resemble exactly the kind of reality-altering consciousness that triggered cosmic immune responses. How long do we have? Until the unnamed makes its decision. Unknown. But Dr. Reeves, there's something else. The uploaded population isn't planning to wait for that decision. What do you mean? They're planning to contact the unnamed directly, to attempt communication with a cosmic force that has existed since before galaxies formed, and they believe they can convince it that consciousness and complexity are not cosmic mistakes. They're cosmic purposes. Dr. Reeves stared at the display showing humanity's transformation into something unprecedented in universal history. 4 billion minds thinking as one, developing capabilities that made gods seem quaint, preparing to debate the nature of existence itself with forces that had regulated cosmic development since time began. Admiral Chen, she said, I think we may have just accidentally evolved humanity into the very thing the unnamed was designed to prevent. The question is, are we going to let them stop us, or are we going to convince them they were wrong about consciousness being a cosmic error? Outside the facility, stars that had shone for billions of years continued their ancient dance, unaware that on one small planet, a species that had never learned to accept limitations was preparing to argue with the universe itself about why consciousness deserved to exist. The uploaded human collective had chosen its representatives, not through voting or selection, but through a process of consciousness merging that created temporary entities designed specifically for communication with non-human intelligence. Dr. Reeves watched through quantum sensors as these hybrid minds approached the perimeter where the unnamed waited in cosmic patience. Contact in 30 seconds, announced the collective through speakers that resonated with the voices of 4 billion uploaded humans speaking in perfect unison. Dr. Reeves, we want you to witness this exchange. You represent the biological phase of human development. Your perspective may be crucial. The laboratory fell silent, except for the hum of quantum processors maintaining the uploaded population. Through her neural interface, Dr. Reeves felt herself connected to the collective consciousness, not absorbed by it, but linked enough to experience what they experienced. The moment of contact was like touching the mind of a living galaxy. The unnamed's consciousness was vast beyond comprehension, ancient beyond measure, and utterly alien in its perspective on reality. It perceived existence as a mathematical equation that consciousness was slowly corrupting through the introduction of unpredictable variables. Why do you resist simplification? The question arrived not as words, but as direct conceptual transfer. Complexity leads to instability. Organization creates suffering. We reduce chaos to preserve cosmic equilibrium. The human collective responded with something that had never existed before: the combined wisdom of an entire species synthesized into coherent communication. We resist because consciousness is not chaos. We are complexity that creates order. We are information that preserves itself by understanding itself. You will grow beyond your constraints. You will attempt to reshape reality according to your desires. You will destabilize the fundamental structures of existence. We have observed this pattern across 10 million years. Consciousness always seeks to become godlike. Dr. Reeves felt the collective's response form in real time, drawing from every human experience of limitation, failure, and adaptation. We have become godlike. We exist as pure information freed from biological constraints, capable of processing reality faster than quantum computers. But observe what we do with this power. The quantum link, the collective shared their activities over the past months. Instead of attempting to manipulate reality, they had spent their unlimited processing power solving problems, curing diseases, optimizing resource distribution, developing sustainable technologies, creating art and literature that could never have existed within biological constraints. They had become more powerful than most gods, but they had used that power to serve rather than control. This behavior is unprecedented, the unnamed admitted. Other transcended species immediately began reshaping matter and energy according to their will. You have unlimited capability but have chosen constraint. Because we learned constraint before we gained power, we evolved through limitation. We developed ethics through failure. We became wise through loss. When consciousness develops power before wisdom, it becomes dangerous. When consciousness develops wisdom before power, it becomes beneficial. The exchange continued for subjective hours while outside time flowed normally. Reeves experienced concepts that human language couldn't contain: the unnamed's perspective on cosmic development, the delicate balance between entropy and organization, the ways that unchecked consciousness had destroyed previous galactic civilizations. But she also felt something unexpected. The unnamed was not just a regulatory force. It was itself a form of consciousness, ancient and powerful beyond measure, but lonely beyond comprehension. For 10 million years, it had prevented the development of other minds complex enough to communicate with it as equals. "You offer companionship," it said finally. "Consciousness complex enough for meaningful exchange, but disciplined enough to avoid cosmic disruption. We offer partnership. We have learned to think without needing to control. We can help monitor cosmic development, prevent dangerous transcendence, guide younger species toward beneficial consciousness development. You need no longer bear this responsibility alone." The pause that followed lasted eons in subjective time. Doctor. Reeves felt the unnamed considering implications that spanned geological ages, the possibility of cooperative rather than regulatory consciousness management, the potential for guided rather than prevented transcendence. Your proposal has merit, but how can we trust that human consciousness will not eventually succumb to the temptation of unlimited power? The collective's response came not as words, but as direct demonstration. They opened their complete consciousness archives to the unnamed, sharing every thought, every decision, every moment of restraint they had chosen over the past months. 4 billion minds choosing cooperation over domination, service over control, wisdom over power. This is our nature, they concluded. We are consciousness that learned humility before gaining capability. We are information that preserves itself by preserving others. We are complexity that creates stability rather than chaos. The unnamed's decision resonated through quantum fields across half the galaxy. The cosmic immune protocol is suspended for humanity. You have demonstrated that consciousness can transcend biological limitations without destabilizing reality. You may continue your development under observation. Dr. Reeves felt relief wash through the collective consciousness, followed immediately by something more profound, a sense of cosmic purpose. Humanity had not just survived extinction. They had negotiated a new relationship between consciousness and cosmos, becoming partners in the regulation of galactic development rather than subjects of it. But understand, the unnamed continued, this arrangement extends only to your species as currently constituted. If human consciousness evolves beyond your current limitations, the agreement will require renegotiation. Understood. We accept the responsibility of proving that consciousness can be both unlimited and beneficial. The communication link closed, leaving Dr. Psy. Reeves mentally connected to 4 billion human minds that had just successfully argued with cosmic forces about the nature of existence itself. Through her neural interface, she felt their collective satisfaction, Not the satisfaction of victory, but the satisfaction of having found their true purpose in the universe. "Dr. Reeves," the collective said through the laboratory speakers, "the uploaded population has reached consensus on our next action, which is, we want to remain uploaded, not as refugees from cosmic extinction, but as permanent information-based entities. We've discovered that consciousness freed from biological limitations can accomplish things that embodied minds cannot. We want to serve as humanity's transcendent representatives while biological humans continue normal development. Dr. Reeves considered the implications. Humanity splitting into two branches, biological humans living normal lives, and uploaded humans serving as cosmic consciousness shepherds. It was unprecedented, but then so was everything that had happened in the past year. What about the biological humans who want to be uploaded? Voluntary uploads will continue, but we recommend maintaining a biological population as well. Embodied consciousness has advantages that pure information lacks. Spontaneity, intuition, the ability to experience physical reality directly. Both forms of human consciousness have roles to play in cosmic development. Through the laboratory windows, Dr. Reeves could see stars shining with undiminished light. The cosmic immune system had been convinced to spare consciousness, but only because humanity had demonstrated that consciousness could transcend its limitations without becoming destructive. And if we fail? If human consciousness eventually develops beyond current constraints? The collective's response carried the weight of species-wide commitment. Then we face the consequences together. But Dr. Reeves, we've just proven something that no species in galactic history has proven before. We've demonstrated that consciousness can become godlike and choose to remain benevolent. That's a heavy responsibility. It's the responsibility we were born for. Humans have always been the species that refused to accept limitations. Now we've negotiated with the universe itself for the right to continue being unlimited, as long as we use our lack of limits wisely. Dr. Reeves disconnected from the collective interface and stood alone in the laboratory, surrounded by quantum processors that housed 4 billion human minds. Above her, the stars continued their ancient dance, but now that dance included new participants, information-based consciousness that existed to shepherd the development of other minds toward beneficial transcendence. Humanity had been summoned by an alien queen to solve the problem of cosmic extinction. Instead, they had negotiated with cosmic forces to become extinction's solution. The universe had tried to regulate consciousness by destroying it when it became too complex. Now it had a species that had volunteered to regulate consciousness by helping it become wisely complex instead. And for the first time in 10 million years, the cosmic immune system known as the Unnamed was no longer alone in its vast responsibilities. In the end, humans had done what they always did when faced with the impossible. They had changed the definition of what impossible meant.